First Contact and Fatal Assumptions. High Admiral Zextal stood before the Hegemony Council, his crystalline exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber's pale light. The massive holographic display behind him showed a small blue planet, unremarkable except for the primitive civilization that had caught the Empire's attention. Distinguished council members, Zextal's translator crystals hummed with practiced authority. We have discovered another sentient species in the Outer Rim. They call themselves humans, and their homeworld Earth. Initial observations suggest a Level 3 civilization, barely achieving rudimentary space travel. The council chamber filled with dismissive clicking sounds, the hegemony's equivalent of laughter. They had seen countless such species come and go, each one eventually bowing to their superior might and technology. These humans, Zextal continued, manipulating the hologram to show their crude satellites and space stations, have only recently reached their moon. Their technology is primarily based on combustion and basic electronics. Their weapon systems rely on chemical propellants and primitive nuclear devices. Council leader Verthak raised a crystalline appendage. Your recommendation, High Admiral. Standard subjugation protocol. Excellence. A small fleet should suffice. Their military capabilities are fractured among numerous nation-states. They lack unified planetary defense systems. I estimate complete surrender within 3 standard cycles. Verthak's crystals pulsed with satisfaction. Approved. But first, send the standard observation team. Let's document their society before we reshape it. The observation team arrived on Earth disguised as passing meteors, their stealth systems ensuring no detection. They scattered across the globe, gathering data about human civilization. Their reports filtered back to the hegemony over the next several months, each one reinforcing their initial assessment. Humans divide themselves based on arbitrary geographical boundaries. Their weapons rely on kinetic energy and chemical explosives. They waste resources on entertainment and leisure activities. Their spacecraft require massive fuel expenditure for minimal acceleration. What the reports failed to capture, however, were the things that made humans unique. They didn't notice how humans turned every tool into a potential weapon. They missed how human entertainment was filled with stories of defeating superior forces against impossible odds. They overlooked how humans thrived on challenge and adaptation. The first hint that something was amiss came when a junior observer reported an anomaly. Humans were detecting their stealth ships, not with technology, but with primitive optical telescopes operated by amateur astronomers. The observer's concern was dismissed. After all, what harm could come from being seen if the humans couldn't reach them? The second warning sign appeared when the humans' internet traffic began showing unusual patterns. Discussions about alien technology and potential weaknesses in crystalline-based life forms increased dramatically. The hegemony's analysts attributed this to random speculation and entertainment media. High Admiral Zextal stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crystal Dominance, as the subjugation fleet prepared to launch. 300 ships, a force that had conquered dozens of worlds, assembled in high orbit around the hegemony's capital world. Send the standard declaration of conquest, he ordered. Let them know the futility of resistance. The message was broadcast globally in all human languages. Your planet is now under the protection of the galactic hegemony. Surrender your military assets and submit to our guidance. Resistance will result in significant casualties. You have 1 standard cycle to comply. The response came not from Earth's governments, but from a civilian radio astronomer in Argentina. A simple audio transmission, broadcast on all frequencies. We've been watching you. We've been learning. And we have just one thing to say. Humanity will never kneel. Zextal dismissed the bravado. How typical of primitive species to make bold claims before their inevitable surrender. He didn't notice the small objects approaching his fleet at impossible speeds, using trajectories that defied standard orbital mechanics. He didn't realize that while his observers had been watching Earth, humans had been watching back, learning and preparing. The first shot of the war wasn't fired by the hegemony's advanced plasma cannons. It came from a supposedly defunct satellite, retrofitted with a simple kinetic weapon, a tungsten rod accelerated to tremendous speed by human ingenuity and determination. As the rod shattered the crystalline hull of a hegemony scout ship, High Admiral Zextal felt the first twinge of something he had never experienced before: doubt. The humans hadn't just been observed. They had been observing. They hadn't just been detected. They had been analyzing. And now, as the pieces of his scout ship drifted in Earth's orbit, Zextal realized the hegemony had made a terrible mistake. They had given humanity time to prepare. And humans, as the hegemony would soon learn, were very good at preparation. The silent response. The destruction of the scout ship should have been impossible. High Admiral Zextal reviewed the sensor data for the 12th time, his crystalline form vibrating with frustration. The humans had somehow managed to accelerate a simple metal rod to velocities that rivaled the hegemony's most advanced weapons. "Status report," he demanded, addressing the fleet's chief analyst. "The humans are," the analyst hesitated, "not behaving according to any known conflict patterns, Admiral. There have been no official responses to our ultimatum from their governments. No military mobilization. No planetary defense preparations that we can detect. Then what are they doing? They appear to be going about their daily routines, working, watching entertainment, playing games." Zextal's crystals darkened with anger. Were they not taking the threat seriously? Did they not understand the power of the hegemony fleet hovering above their world? But deep in the mountains, deserts, and oceans of Earth, humanity was far from idle. In an underground facility beneath the Swiss Alps, Dr. Sarah Chen studied the crystalline fragment recovered from the destroyed scout ship. Her team had been working nonstop since the first stealth ships were detected, preparing for this moment. "The crystal structure responds to electromagnetic frequencies," she reported to the Global Defense Council, speaking through secure quantum-encrypted channels. "More importantly, it shows signs of resonant frequencies that could be exploited." Across the Pacific, in a hidden submarine base, Japanese engineers were already modifying their sonar arrays based on her findings. Similar preparations were happening worldwide, all carefully concealed from the hegemony's watching eyes. The humans had learned from their own history. They remembered Pearl Harbor, Operation Barbarossa, and countless other surprises. This time, they would be the ones delivering the surprise. In orbit, Zextal finally lost patience. Begin the first phase of subjugation. Target their largest military installations. Show them the price of defiance. The hegemony fleet moved into attack formation, their crystalline ships spreading out in a perfect geometric pattern. It was beautiful, efficient, and completely predictable, exactly as humanity had hoped. As the first hegemony ships entered the atmosphere, they encountered something unexpected: silence. Complete radio silence. The constant chatter of human communications that had filled their sensors suddenly ceased. Then the sound began. It started as a low hum, barely detectable. The hegemony ship's sensors registered it as harmless background noise. But the frequency was precisely calculated, matching the resonant frequency of their crystalline hulls. The hum grew stronger. Deep in the oceans, modified sonar arrays amplified the signal. Ground-based stations hidden in mountain ranges added their power. Even the humans' primitive communications satellites had been repurposed to join the symphony. The first signs of trouble appeared as microscopic cracks in the hegemony ship's hulls. By the time Zextal realized what was happening, it was too late. The carefully coordinated sound waves were already wreaking havoc on their crystalline technology. "Impossible," he whispered, watching as his perfect formation began to break apart. The humans hadn't fired a single conventional shot, yet his ships were failing around him. But the sound attack was just the beginning. As the hegemony fleet struggled to maintain cohesion, the skies filled with thousands of small objects, civilian satellites, space debris, and specially prepared projectiles, all on carefully plotted collision courses. The humans had turned space itself into a weapon, using the hegemony's own orbital predictions against them. Each piece of debris was too small to trigger their defensive systems, but collectively they were devastating. Zextal watched in horror as his fleet, the pride of the hegemony, was reduced to chaos by the very primitives they had come to subjugate. The humans hadn't just prepared for war, they had reimagined what war could be. As his ships retreated to higher orbit, emergency signals flooding the command network, Zextal received another transmission from Earth. The same civilian frequency as before, carrying a simple message. That was your warning shot. Shall we show you what happens when we actually start fighting? For the first time in his long career, High Admiral Zextal felt something new. Fear. The humans hadn't just resisted. They had turned the hegemony's own assumptions into a weapon. And somehow he knew this was only the beginning. Unexpected tactics. The Hegemony Council chamber erupted in chaos as High Admiral Zextal delivered his report. The crystalline beings vibrated with frequencies of distress and anger, their usual geometric harmony shattered. Impossible. Council leader Verthak's voice resonated through the chamber. You mean to tell us that these primitives not only anticipated our attack, but developed countermeasures based on our own technology? The humans. Zextal's crystals dimmed with shame. They think differently than any species we've encountered. While we watched them, they studied us. They turned their weaknesses into strengths. In the debris field that was once low Earth orbit, human space crews in retrofitted vessels were already salvaging crystalline technology from damaged hegemony ships. Each piece was a treasure trove of advanced science, but more importantly, each piece revealed new vulnerabilities to exploit. The hegemony's response was predictable. They launched a full-scale invasion. 10,000 ships, the largest fleet ever assembled, emerged from hyperspace around Earth. This time, they would overwhelm the humans with sheer numbers. But humanity had been preparing for this too. Deep in the Atacama Desert, Dr. Chen stood in a vast underground chamber filled with salvaged crystalline technology. The hegemony's biggest weakness, she explained to military leaders worldwide, isn't their crystalline structure. It's their inability to imagine unconventional solutions. Her team had discovered that hegemony ships communicated through complex crystalline resonances, beautiful, efficient, and utterly vulnerable to the chaos of human creativity. As the hegemony fleet approached Earth, they encountered no resistance. No sound weapons, no debris fields. Instead, they picked up thousands of human broadcasts, music of every genre, from classical to heavy metal, all playing simultaneously. The hegemony commanders dismissed it as primitive psychological warfare. Their mistake was not realizing that hidden within the cacophony were precisely modulated frequencies, each tailored to interact with their ship's crystalline communication networks. The first ships began reporting navigation errors. Then weapons systems started targeting friendly vessels. The perfectly coordinated hegemony fleet began to move like drunk dancers, their crystalline systems corrupted by what they had dismissed as noise. But humanity wasn't done. From hidden bases across the planet, thousands of small drones launched, not advanced weapons, but simple machines carrying an innovative payload, programmable matter derived from studying crystalline technology. As the drones approached the hegemony ships, they released clouds of this material. The crystalline beings watched in horror as the microscopic particles attached themselves to their ships' hulls, growing like inverse fractal patterns. Where hegemony technology sought perfect geometric harmony, these human-made crystals introduced controlled chaos. You see, Dr. Chen had explained, their technology is based on perfect order. Ours thrives on adaptation and imperfection. We're not trying to beat them at their own game. We're making them play ours. Zextal, watching from his flagship, finally understood. The humans hadn't just developed countermeasures. They had turned the very nature of hegemony technology against itself. Each perfect crystal, each precise formation, became a vulnerability when exposed to human ingenuity. The battle that followed wasn't the orderly conquest the hegemony had planned. Human forces struck from impossible angles, used improvised weapons, and employed strategies that defied military logic. They didn't fight like a unified army, but like thousands of independent units, each adapting and innovating in real time. Earth's atmosphere became a graveyard for hegemony ships, not from conventional weapons, but from 1,000 tiny defeats. Their perfect crystalline formations were disrupted by atmospheric turbulence that humans had learned to navigate centuries ago. Their precise energy weapons were scattered by clouds seeded with reflective particles. Their flawless battle plans fell apart against an enemy that refused to follow the rules of engagement. As his fleet disintegrated around him, Zextal received another transmission from Earth. This time, it wasn't a warning or a threat, but a simple question that shook him to his core. Did you really think we spent the last century creating science fiction about alien invasions without learning anything from it? The High Admiral looked at his tactical display, watching as human creativity systematically dismantled everything he thought he knew about warfare. The hegemony had brought order and structure to 1,000 worlds, but they had never encountered a species that turned chaos itself into a weapon. And somewhere on Earth, humanity was already preparing their next surprise. The tables turn. The hegemony had never retreated from a battle. Until now. As the remnants of their grand fleet limped back through hyperspace, humanity was already moving to the next phase of their plan. In orbit around Jupiter, hidden from hegemony sensors by the gas giant's electromagnetic storms, Earth's first true space fleet was taking shape. But these weren't the sleek, uniform vessels of science fiction. Each ship was unique, a testament to human improvisation and ingenuity. Commander Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the ESS Prometheus, Earth's first hybrid tech warship. The vessel was a patchwork of human and salvaged hegemony technology, ugly by crystalline standards, but beautiful in its functionality. Status report, she called out to her crew. Crystal core is stable, her engineer reported. The chaos algorithms are keeping the hegemony tech from trying to restructure itself into their standard patterns. We're actually getting better power output than their original designs. That was humanity's greatest breakthrough. The discovery that hegemony technology could be improved by introducing controlled imperfection. Where the crystalline beings sought harmony, humans had found that discord could be a source of strength. The Prometheus wasn't alone. Hundreds of ships were under construction, each incorporating lessons learned from the first battles. Some carried sound weapons refined to shatter crystalline structures. Others were equipped with electromagnetic disruptors that could corrupt hegemony navigation systems. All of them were designed to be unpredictable. But the real advantage wasn't in the ships themselves. It was in their crews. Humans who had grown up playing video games now operated weapons systems with an intuition that baffled hegemony tactical computers. Street racers turned pilots pulled off maneuvers that should have been impossible. Engineers who had spent their lives fixing cars with duct tape and wire found ways to merge technologies that the hegemony had deemed incompatible. Deep in the hegemony's home systems, the Council was facing an unprecedented crisis. Their perfect society, based on order and predictability, was being challenged not just militarily but philosophically. The humans are expanding. Verthak announced to the Council, his crystals dim with concern. They've begun establishing bases in their solar system. They're adapting our technology in ways that we never considered possible. Impossible, one council member protested. Their civilization is barely 1,000 years old. They cannot hope to match our advancement. They're not trying to match us. Zextal spoke up, his recent experiences having changed him profoundly. They're transforming our technology into something new, something that neither of us fully understands. The council chamber fell silent as tactical displays showed the latest intelligence. Human ships appearing and disappearing at will, using modified hyperspace drives that ignored established routes. Weapons that shouldn't work but did. Defenses that seemed to anticipate hegemony attacks before they happened. But most disturbing of all was how quickly humans were learning. Each encounter, each battle, Each piece of salvaged technology accelerated their development. They weren't just copying hegemony technology, they were reimagining it. Back in the Sol system, Commander Rodriguez watched as her fleet grew. The ships were as diverse as humanity itself. African designs emphasizing stealth and speed, Asian vessels bristling with innovative weapons, European ships focused on electronic warfare, each contributing something unique to humanity's defense. "They're coming back," her tactical officer reported, pointing to long-range sensor data. "The hegemony is mobilizing everything they have. Tens of thousands of ships." Rodriguez smiled, an expression that would have baffled the crystalline beings. "Good," she said. "Let's show them what else we've learned." As the human fleet moved into position, they broadcasted a message on all frequencies, in perfect hegemony crystal resonance. "You taught us that space warfare was about order and precision. Now let us teach you about chaos and creativity." The battle for humanity's future was about to begin, and for the first time, Earth wasn't fighting for survival. They were fighting to win. Victory through persistence. The final battle began not with a bang, but with silence. The massive hegemony armada emerged from hyperspace to find the human fleet waiting, not in formation, but scattered across the solar system in seemingly random positions. On the Prometheus's bridge, Commander Rodriguez watched the enemy fleet's arrival with calm determination. "Send the message," she ordered. Across every hegemony ship, displays activated unbidden, showing a simple video. Children on Earth, playing with crystals. But these weren't ordinary crystals. They were pieces of hegemony technology, repurposed into toys. The message was clear. What the hegemony saw as their greatest achievement, humans saw as just another tool to be mastered and reimagined. "All ships," Rodriguez broadcast to the human fleet, "execute Operation Chaos." The human vessels moved like a swarm of angry bees, each following its own unpredictable path. The hegemony's tactical computers, designed to predict and counter organized military maneuvers, were overwhelmed trying to track thousands of ships that refused to follow any recognizable pattern. Then the real attack began. Ships equipped with Dr. Chen's latest innovation, quantum resonance disruptors, activated their weapons. The very fabric of space-time around the hegemony fleet began to distort, creating zones where their crystalline technology couldn't maintain its perfect structure. "Impossible." Verthak's voice echoed through the hegemony command network. "They've weaponized quantum uncertainty itself." But humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology, it was their adaptability. As the hegemony adjusted to each new tactic, human ships would switch to entirely different strategies. Some vessels launched swarms of miniature drones that attached themselves to hegemony ships, introducing random vibrations that disrupted their crystal matrices. Others projected holographic duplicates of themselves, making it impossible to distinguish real targets from fake ones. The space around Earth became a testing ground for every crazy idea humanity had ever conceived. Theoretical physics previously dismissed as impossible became actual weapons. Scientific principles were bent in ways that made crystalline minds short-circuit trying to understand them. High Admiral Zextal, watching from his flagship, finally understood the fundamental error in the hegemony's thinking. They had assumed that their older, more advanced civilization would naturally be superior. But humanity's shorter history was their strength. They weren't bound by millennia of established protocols and procedures. As his fleet crumbled around him, Zextal did something unprecedented in hegemony history. He opened a direct channel to the human commander. "Why?" he asked simply. "Why do you fight like this?" Rodriguez's response came immediately. "Because we never learned how we were supposed to fight. We never developed the right way to wage war or build ships or use technology. We just did what worked, and when that didn't work, we tried something else." The battle lasted 3 days. By the end, the mighty hegemony fleet, the greatest armed force the galaxy had ever seen, was reduced to scattered fragments. Not by superior technology or overwhelming force, but by an enemy that turned unpredictability into an art form. The surrender, when it came, was as unconventional as the battle itself. The Hegemony Council, for the first time in their history, requested to learn from those they had sought to conquer. 1 year later, the first human embassy opened on the Hegemony homeworld. Its architecture was a deliberate mix of crystalline precision and human chaos, a physical representation of how two radically different civilizations could complement each other. Dr. Chen, now Earth's ambassador to the Hegemony, stood in the embassy's main hall with Verithak, discussing the future. "Your species," Verithak admitted, "has changed everything we thought we knew about advancement. We sought perfection through order, while we found strength in imperfection." Chen finished. "Perhaps that's the greatest lesson here. The universe isn't meant to be perfect. It's meant to be explored, questioned, and sometimes completely reimagined." As ships from both civilizations passed overhead, some crystalline, some human, and many a strange hybrid of both, the galaxy faced a new reality. The Hegemony had sought to teach humanity their way of doing things, but instead learned a far more valuable lesson. Sometimes the best way forward isn't the most perfect or predictable path, but the one you make for yourself. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, other civilizations were about to learn the same lesson. Never underestimate a species that turns its greatest weaknesses into strengths and views the impossible as simply another problem to solve. The end.